You're the real committee.
Good evening, everyone. This is the Town of Fairfield's Affordable Housing Committee meeting, a special meeting of Wednesday, December 18th. We're meeting online via Zoom as well as in the second floor of the old town hall. It is 7:02. We do have a quorum. So this meeting is being recorded for those joining in person and online. I'll turn things over to the chair.
Terrific. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to our special guests this evening. We're going to start with them, but let's first start by introductions. So, Ed, do you want to start? Or?
Sure. Yeah. I'm Ed Gormley. I'm co-owner of the Circle Hotel as well as the High Ho in town. I've been in the real estate business since probably 2 years old, running around on bulldozers and diapers. Been around town for a very long time, and I'm glad to be here tonight. Thank you for having me.
And John Fallon, I'm pleased to be representing Ed and his partners with regard to the exciting development that we're going to share with you tonight.
Excellent. Terrific. Yes.
Me? I'm Honora Radshaw. I'm just an observer. I live on Shoreham Village Drive, a neighbor of the Circle Inn.
Yes. Excellent. Great to have everybody here. And then we'll introduce ourselves. So I'm Herb Blanco, we're current chair of the committee. And
I'm Bob Ellinger. On the committee.
Steve Grothwell, the vice chair, right?
that's right.
Currently,
Yes.
Jackie Page, member.
Gretchen Gertner, recording secretary.
Mark Barnhart, Director of Community Economic Development for the town and staff support to the Affordable Housing Committee.
Excellent.
I think we have Janice Pugliese online as a member of the committee and other members of the public as well. Is this anyone? And here's Brian Bay.
Here's Brian Vahey. Hello, Brian.
hey, Brian.
Just doing introductions.
Brian, we're going to start with the 441 Post Road presentation. So Ed and John are going to walk us through that. So.
I'm going to be very brief, turn it over to the brains of the operation in a minute. I'm pleased to be here tonight with Ed. We do thank you for your time, especially in this busy holiday season. I'm going to let Ed give you the details in terms of the exciting development here. One thing I would say, we very much appreciated, I did on behalf of other clients, your support of the now pending mixed-use proposal over on Post Road and Fairfield Place. That is ongoing. The hearing will probably resume and hopefully conclude on January 28th. But the reason I bring it up, just as an introduction to Ed's direct comments about our proposal, is one of the things that I think this proposal accomplishes. In addition to, as is the case with the Fairfield Place proposal, is spreading out and diversifying our affordable housing inventory in the town. There's been a fair amount of publicity and there's comments online and sometimes at TPZ meetings that there seems to be a high concentration of affordable housing applications over in the 6th district area of town. Obviously, the town can't control where someone makes an affordable housing application, but I think it's very healthy that we're seeing now going through the process 2 applications specifically where significant affordable housing, in this case, as you'll hear, 30 units, will be in a part of the community that is underserved for affordable housing. And I think the same thing is true, and we pointed that out for the Fairfield Place development as well. So that was just a thought in terms of the ongoing attempt to, spread out and diversify our housing, affordable housing opportunities in town. And I think this proposal, which Ed's going to talk to you about, has that benefit. So I'll leave it to you to give the specifics and the overview.
Yeah, sure. So before I get into the project itself, I just want to give a little background. So affordability has been near and dear to my heart for a very long time. I grew up in the area. It's obviously very expensive to do that on the salary of my mom, who was just a bartender at Colony. So we didn't have a lot of resources, but we were able to enjoy the great settings of Fairfield County. And part of my life's mission that I literally wrote down in a graduate paper I wrote almost 20 years ago now was how to be smart about real estate and affordability in particular. And so the business I built down in Norwalk is very focused on affordability. We've got 350 apartments scattered around the town, and we try to do it in a very smart way. Very mixed, lots of different people in the communities, grandparents, new college grads working at ASML, two parent couples that are making 30, 40 bucks an hour, trying to send two kids to public school. So we understand how to build community. We've done it quite well in Norwalk and been recognized for it quite a bit. So what we're gonna talk about tonight is the Fairfield Circle site, which is obviously a large piece of land right in the middle of town. We have tried to make a go of that as a hotel for many years. Has not been the best hotel location. Predominantly, we hope because the building is just obsolete. It was built in the 50s. It was great for what it was. We've cleaned up what we could, but we're just at the tail end of its life. And so as we reimagined this, particularly coming out of COVID, we said, okay, how do we balance out the ups and downs of the hotel business with what we know how to do with a community building and particularly around affordability. So there's some slides behind me, which I will walk you through to give you a sense for the place, but that's background. Does that make sense? Any questions on that so far? Okay.
Yeah, you're right here, so we have more room.
So just from an overall aesthetic, what you can see we're going for is this feel of a New England inn. The hotel will be over here. The apartment buildings are here and here. There's a parking garage inside this building that you can't even see. And then there's a great amenity place back here behind this. And this is all overlooking the marsh behind us. So you can see lots of little features which the architect have worked very hard on to bring in, like, for example, the slanted roofs, which cost us kind of headspace from a tenant perspective, but actually make it very beautiful, very New England, very much like an old inn.
Where's the Circle Diner there?
So this one's right
there. Okay, good, thanks.
Right on my line, that's where I was going. Okay, so in this case, so here again is the hotel or the apartments. Circle Diner remains in place. And we have a eagle's eye view, which I can show you in a moment.
How many curb cuts are you eliminating?
One.
Okay.
And this is a view from inside the parcel. So this would be almost evoking the Delamar. If you pull in the back of the Delamar, you can see they almost have a village feel. Here's the entrance to the hotel. Here's the diner down the path there, entry to the apartment amenity right there. Let me get you the bird's eye view. Just to put it all into perspective on the site. Diner, hotel, parking garage, apartment buildings around, and then the affordable units would be dispersed around the apartments, different views, different floors, et cetera.
Jumping ahead, just.
Please.
Fire department, the trucks can get around.
Yeah, and in fact, we've actually met with them a couple of times at this point. There'll be an access point back here that they can pull in. It's not in this particular view, but yeah, we flushed that out. Yes, very much.
So that gives a view of the basement level, so to speak, right?
This, I think, is actually the ground.
That's
Yes,
ground.
yes, this is ground. Yep.
Yes, that's what I meant, is that, because in the presentation, we superimposed a couple of views, one on top of the other.
Yes,
Just want to make sure we had that.
yes, this is the ground.
And that's pool and amenities?
Yeah, so by amenity, probably a little lounging area, et cetera, but the pool is the main feature.
Just one, while it's catching his breath, the architecture is particularly, I think, stunning here in terms of a gateway opportunity for this portion of Fairfield. The architect is Vinefield Architects. They have done a lot of beautiful work, one of which is the anchorage right on Umpqua. So they have a good attention to the kind of detail we're trying to create. These are just some of their other projects in and around Fairfield County. So they have, their conception here is backed up by a good sense of, I think, what works for the town, what would work for the site.
Yeah, they are. We pay for that, but they are excellent.
Will they extend that treatment at some point to the diner?
That's to be determined. The diner's on a long-term lease. We'll see. We're pushing this forward. If the diner wants to catch up, we'd be glad to have them. And then I want to bring up one other profile. So this is the cross-section view. So when you think about the site, what people often forget is that the upper building is actually almost 20 feet higher than the post road. It's actually quite high. And so the plan actually has us proposing essentially parking a car on the roof line of that upper building. So when you think about the massing of this site, what's actually happening is we're digging down 25 feet to bring the building down to the post road level. So what's superimposed in here is the existing building. So you can see we're gonna be just about the same height as where we are today.
Can you see the parking from the outside?
No, it'll be totally
Wrapped, yeah.
wrapped, yeah.
And we are proposing a series of amendments along with this to facilitate it. They're generally, again, consistent with the plan of conservation and development. We are proposing to increase the required affordable requirement to 12%. As you know, it's currently 10, and you've been following the plan, the conservation development discussions. They've been around a lot of numbers, but at least for now, our proposal is for a 12% regulation amendment, which would yield 30 deed restricted units here based upon the total of 250 for 40 years, et cetera.
Can you go back to the one you just had up with the parking? Yeah, so is any part of the site in a flood zone? I can see there's water, but is any part in the flood zone?
It's not in the flood zone. The building isn't, I should say. The very edges of the property are in the tidal wetlands.
Yeah, okay.
But the building,
We're not doing anything in the tidal wetlands that would trigger the need for a state DEP permit. We will have to get a CAM approval, but in that regard, we're creating a very substantial buffer, as Ed can point out, between the development and the marsh area. Plus, we're providing for public access, which will be detailed.
Walkway in the back? Yeah.
yeah, and to put this in perspective, here is the flood zone line to John's point, and the tidal wetlands is even further back. So we're way off of that. And in fact, when you think about the water runoff that happens today, built to 1959 standards, this is going to be a much better setup for the wetlands that are behind us.
And there are no inland wetlands on the property, so.
That pool is a swimming pool, not a detention or retention.
Correct.
Yes, we don't want it to float.
Some of the concerns the commission had was related to the distance to the back there, the green space, the buffer. As I recall, it didn't sound like they were major, but what were they?
There-
Do you need to address those?
There were, so what we actually, this portion, the question was whether we needed to be 100 feet from the line. If that was the requirement, all the houses around would be non-compliant. And so we're just gonna stick with 50. But when you actually do our math out, what we end up finding is that besides these two nubs here, which actually kind of have to stick out to give the amenities some support.
Sure.
We're an average of 126 feet from the wetlands, if you literally average it out around the building.
The tidal wetland.
Tidal
So
wetlands.
tidal wetlands.
Yes,
Okay.
yes. Thank you. Questions?
Parking, how many spaces per unit? And does it vary hotel versus apartment?
They're all gonna have access to the parking garage as well as the lot, and then roughly 516 spaces.
So that's 1 point something.
Yeah, 1.
The hotel's 110 rooms and 250 residential units.
What about employee parking? The apartment's not so important, but the hotel,
They'll probably end up on the roof of the garage where no one else is gonna wanna park. We think we're gonna have plenty of parking, but we're very sensitive to the neighborhood concerns that no cars spill off the property. So we're building up a
What's the
lot.
current hotel occupancy? Max.
I mean, tonight,
But I mean,
Half
what's the
full.
capacity?
oh, 80.
80
Yeah.
rooms. Okay.
I know the question came up about, can you do more than 12%? And I guess another question was, how about some combination of 80% affordable and 60% affordable? I'm not sure you've had a chance to think through those implications of those yet.
they have a significant impact on the bottom line of the development. And so when you pencil this stuff all out, we get to about a 6.5% unlevered return. And what that means is we don't have a lot of margin for error, right? So we borrow at roughly 5.5%, 6% today. So we have very little margin as it is today. This is a project that if we were thinking about Norwalk, for example, this is a site that would hold hundreds of units. And that's kind of the economics we're used to. This has been education for me to kind of go all the way through the math and realize there's not a lot of margin of error for error here. I wish we had more.
So you see the demand for hotel. You're gonna be able to meet, you see an increase in demand, obviously, in the area, more than double.
I see an increase for the hotel. The issue we have with the hotel is that it's very cyclical. And so on commencement weekend and parents weekend, everybody's sold out.
Yeah.
And that's when everyone wants the hotel. But people forget this time of year, every Sunday, there's nobody in the hotel. Right? So when we've had these discussions, the universities in particular have said, can you make more hotel rooms?
Right.
I'm not comfortable with a lot more hotel rooms.
The universities are very enthusiastic because they'd like to see a better option for their guests.
And is there gonna be additional food outlet or banquet facilities? Can people do weddings here?
It's a good question. So as it relates to food, we won't have a full service option because we have the diner already on site. But we will certainly have a bunch of white space down in this hotel lobby. You can see we've only programmed rooms in the back half. So we've got this huge white box in the front that we can play around with depending on what the demand is. So yes, weddings make a lot of sense. A wellness sort of center, some sort of fitness area make a lot of sense, yet to be determined.
Okay.
No retail, no other retail.
No retail, although I personally would love some sort of like Fairfield custom, the shirts with the zip codes on it type of boutique in there. But again, to be determined. I think that would be a lot of fun, actually. A small ice cream parlor, like something that's very hotel specific type of retail.
And you guys control the diner, right?
We own the site and the building. They're on a long-term lease.
Yeah, but they can't do anything outside of the building, meaning in the parking area and stuff without approvals.
Correct.
Yeah, okay.
A sense at this point in terms of what market rentals or market values might be?
So it's gonna be what the market demands. And so if you look at the Anchorage this week, if you look at some of the other stuff near the train station, you're somewhere in the high teens to 2,500 probably for a 1-bedroom, kind of in that round number. 2 bedrooms are probably in the high twos. Again, just very round numbers. I suspect we'll be somewhere in that, but there's a lot of room in there.
Have you had traffic studies about this coming in and out there?
We have. The good news of the traffic is that we have, well, I should say, on a relative basis, it is what it is already, right? There's a post road is a busy road. Turning right out of our site, no problem in the traffic study. Turning left, no more of a problem than it already is. And so how do we solve that? We actually think we're gonna be in a better position to solve that because now we're gonna keep that traffic up, on our site while it's waiting to leave our site. They'll have room to just sit there. And unfortunately, that's what they'll do. That's what they do today, though.
And this is on the state DOT. I mean, it's not high on the state DOT list, but
Well,
they're gonna start on the other end of town, right?
Yeah,
there are 3 projects
Right.
running from the Bridgeport line, Grassmere section, all the way to the what's called the Peanut or the Rotary. So the one closest to the Bridgeport line is close to starting construction. But then a second project is closely aligned with this one in the sense that we have put our designer in touch with firm here, make sure that the driveway approaches line up.
Coordinating.
Yeah, because I think it'll be.
And
the same
traffic.
through. And I think probably the fact that there is something planned for this site may have a favorable effect in terms of expediting the state's review and process with respect to other roadway improvements in the area.
I think that's right. That's the sense we get just dealing with the state's consultant on this. And I should say, in this area, it's not just car traffic, it's also pedestrian traffic. And so what we're gonna do is a significant improvement along the sidewalk, particularly as it leads towards Shore and Village. If you walk that today, it's very narrow and it's very close to the street. The idea is we'll pull that back from the street, widen the sidewalk, so people can actually go.
That's actually a major emphasis of the projects that are being planned to make it more safer for all users of the area, including pedestrians. There's literally no pedestrian infrastructure currently. And so
Or bike.
there's been some issues.
Or what?
I've tried to go
So the curb cut you're eliminating
Yeah.
allows you to have that entrance more east, which makes the left turn, the right.
Because Riverside
the left
is now out,
So if you're further east.
It will force people out of that one, that's right. Where the other curb cut is essentially right here
That's a
today,
tough one.
and it's a tough one, yeah.
Are you eliminating parking for the diner? Is most of that outdoor parking more for the diner than?
I think in practice, more diners will probably go there, but in actuality, anybody can use any of it.
Your parking's basically undisturbed though. I mean, but they
Except for
rely,
Wednesday morning,
huh?
Wednesday mornings.
Yeah.
So the B&I groups are there, you can get parking at the diner.
Yeah.
It's amazing. Yeah. So you've gone to the commission with a pre-application and also not the public hearing yet.
No, we're gonna submit this week.
Okay.
We've had a lot of outreach, so we've touched probably 80 neighbors at this point.
Mhm.
We've gone up and down the post road. We have approximately 70 signatures from businesses up and down the post road. We have signed letters from 17 residents already, some of whom in the exact community.
Mhm.
Letters of support, we expect more of those to roll in, and then we'll go to public. Getting this architecture right has been a demanding feat, and so that's what's taken us a little bit of time.
We expect we will file this week. The goal was to file before the holiday and we're on track to file by Friday, I think.
Yeah, yes, that's right, that's right.
So maybe it'll be on the agenda in January.
It'll be on an agenda in January to say, hi, we have a new application.
Mhm.
As Mark and we were all discussing, their backlog is such now, the best case scenario would be a February hearing. Because their January, although they're already meeting 3 nights, is
It's already committed, yeah.
there, but, right, so we're hoping
Yeah.
February, but we'll see.
Yeah.
One thing that we're trying to do is to find ways to extend deed restriction, beyond 40 years. I'm not sure if this is something that has come up in your
Mhm.
discussion or consideration, but it is something that we as a committee are really trying to find ways, because we are concerned that 40 years will go, maybe not for us, but 40 years will go faster
Yeah.
than we as a community probably contemplate it will.
Commissioner Harrison has thoughtfully made that point, among others, a number of times in discussions,
This really looks great. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
it's an outstanding
That's a great design.
design and presentation. That's great.
Very exciting.
A lot of heart and soul went into this.
Yeah, we're excited to take the next steps with planning and zoning, and we're sensing a great deal of enthusiasm throughout the town for it. And so that's got us even more encouraged, but we'll make our thorough presentation, we'll cover all the matters that planning and zoning need to have covered, and we think on its merit, hopefully it'll be approved.
And Ed, do you have a
Years for it.
GC identified yet or a builder?
We haven't, my partner Clay Fowler has an in-house construction team, and they've done hundreds, if not thousands of units, so we may very well have these.
Thank you guys very much.
Thank you very much.
We always appreciate when you come by and see us.
We'll, through Mark, keep you posted in terms of scheduling, so you'll be aware of that, and if you can do it and you do it, we very much would appreciate your support.
It looks like the landscaping plan will be robust as well.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, all those are new plantings.
Oh, yes.
Right, a lot of new
Lot
ones.
of plantings.
Yeah,
We like to see
Practically
that.
ringing the property with new plantings.
yeah.
So John, have you guys met with the RTM reps?
We have, we've reached, as part of the outreach here has been very comprehensive, thanks to Ed and his team. I mean, more so than I've ever seen as far as that. So yes, the RTM were one of the first people we contacted.
Okay.
Terrific. Thanks, guys.
Great. Thank you.
And again, happy holidays. Merry
Yes,
Christmas.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. This is theirs.
Don't forget your stuff, umbrella, somebody's umbrella?
Your umbrella? No,
No?
not mine.
Oh, it's probably mine.
Oh, okay.
Won't steal yours. Thank you.
You see this? This is, address, phone number.
Yeah, I was asking for confirmation of everyone's contact information.
You got you, did you?
If you will. If you will. So I guess we can move on with the other items that are on agenda. First item, I think, would be the minutes of the November meeting.
Thank you, Gretchen.
I moved to approve.
Motion,
I second.
second, all in favor? Unanimous? Next item we have is officers for 2025. So we need a chair, a vice chair, and a secretary.
Yeah, or a chair and a secretary, or you can have the vice chair serve as the
Let's do
secretary.
Okay.
I'm holding up to be treasurer. I want to be.
We don't have any treasure.
No treasure.
We can't trust you with any money.
All right, so do we have a nomination for chair?
Sure. I'll nominate earlier.
Any other nominations?
Any other nominations? Absolutely. No, no other nominations?
none.
All in favor?
All right.
Thank you much for your confidence. Okay, so we currently have a vice chair and a secretary. Do we want to continue with that? Or do we want to do some sort of combination? We haven't pressed the secretary into aggressive.
The secretary we have a recording secretary. The secretary's role is merely, if there was any official business to transact, there would be he would sign to indicate it's an official record for the commission. So it doesn't typically come into play here, so. But I know that typically what we're asked to do is have a chair and a secretary. The vice chair is helpful because sometimes the chair is not available, so. Vice chair has occasionally been pressed into service.
That doesn't happen very often that I can recall. And if Herb
It's because he has
was
sterling attendance, that's why.
wasn't available, could the secretary then chair the meeting?
In the absence of vice chair, sure. Be nice.
Yeah.
Be vice chair, secretary, and one person.
Well, we don't need a vice chair then. We could just have a secretary and a chair.
You want to get yourself out of it? That's what it is.
Well, I'm just trying to make it efficient, you know?
I was told by the town clerk that committees do need both a chair and a secretary. Beyond that is at your discretion.
Well, what does the chair suggest?
Can you guys hear me? You can hear me?
Yeah, there's some feedback in the background.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'm sitting in my car at the train station. I had to do a pickup today. We were down a car. So I love Herb for chair. And I don't know about secretary. I mean, I defer to you guys and I don't know if Nina has weighed in.
Well, Nina is our current secretary, I believe.
Right, I know, I don't know. I mean, I almost feel like, okay, maybe it's not necessary. It's not like a vital role, but does it hurt to have her?
It does not. No.
Right? Like, so, I mean, I almost say if she's not opposed, why not leave it?
Is there a motion there, Janice? Are you making a motion to appoint?
I'll second it.
Secretary?
Okay, I'm making a motion to keep this, keep the secretary as Nina Velez.
Second.
I would second
And I think Bob has seconded that.
Wonderful. So
Brian started
I
it.
just want to say that once I start driving, I'm going to mute my microphone, and then once I get home, I'll unmute. I just wanted to give you a heads up, and I'm sorry for missing the meeting in person.
No problem. Thanks, Janice.
Okay, so we have so all in favor of Nina Velez as
Yes.
secretary? Yeah. Okay.
Aye.
Now we got the issue of vice chair, so I think we've decided to keep the vice chair position,
We did?
right?
No, I think we said we'd just go with a secretary and a chair. Knowing that the secretary, knowing the secretary could fill in.
I think we spent 2 minutes more than we needed to on the conversation, so I don't. Do we currently have one? Is it you? Well, I move we keep him. If we don't
I
need,
second.
if we need it, we need it, so there you
We
go.
have a motion made and seconded. Sorry, Steve, you can't get that.
All in favor of
Christina, are you okay with it?
Yep.
absolutely.
Here's how it works next year. If you don't want that, you point at me.
Okay, so we
Make sure you come to the meeting.
so we resolved those issues. So
I will let the town clerk know. Appreciate that.
we have a Carol Martin. Hi, Carol. Wait.
There she is.
Oh, that was
Video
good.
with us. Carol, we can hear you.
That was like a drone.
Hi, everyone.
Don't say Trump. Don't say Trump.
So Carol, we're delighted to have you, and we understand that you have an item to discuss.
Yeah, this can really be under both the pending developments and the Housing Trust Fund, item 7A and 7B. As you know, Carol, Fairfield Housing Corp., Fairfield Housing Authority has been moving ahead with plans to develop 980 High Street, have the entitlements in place, now seeking financing for the project. This will be a LIHTC application, most likely, hopefully for 9% credits, which are competitive. But there is a funding gap, and I think that's why. Did I set that up enough for you, Carol? You can kind of run through the time horizon you're working with and what you're looking at.
Sure. So thank you and happy holidays to everyone. And thanks for letting me speak for just a brief minute. There were a couple of things that I wanted to just update you. I mean, it's hard to believe that the Fairfield Housing Corp. Purchased 980 High Street back in December of 2018. So it's been quite some time. And the first, I think, thing that I wanted to share with you is, obviously costs have increased and the pandemic certainly didn't help with those cost increases. So the application we're preparing, which is due by January 15th of 2025, we have taken the market rate units and converted them into tax credit units. And the reason we did that is strictly a financial decision, because frankly, any units we build, we will have no trouble leasing up. But we needed the tax credit equity to kind of, reduce the gap. So having said all that, all 40 units now will fall under, tax credit, affordable AMI designation. And the gap remains as we speak at approximately 1.5 million. So the other thing I was hoping, to get some support, maybe through, the committee's support and through the town, to try to give us a soft commitment so that, we can submit for a credible tax credit application. And it is highly competitive. I know Mark knows this, but for those of you that don't really deal in the low income housing tax credit world, the Connecticut Housing Finance Authority probably gets close to, 20 plus applications, of which they have about 5 or 6 that they typically can fund. So I can certainly it's already published about who's, going to be coming in for an application, but as usual, it's overly subscribed. So, notwithstanding your, willingness to give us some funds for the project, it's also the tax credit application itself gives you points for having some resources, locally from your local community. So it not only, will make our, application more competitive, it also will help us fill the $1.5 million gap. And please don't misunderstand me. I'm not asking for 1.5 billion, but, certainly it could be considered, and it was available under the Housing Trust Fund, a $500,000 commitment, I know would go a long way to making this project a reality.
So we don't have this on as an action item, but in the past, I have provided with your blessing, soft letters of commitment to assist projects like this to be more competitive. And obviously, if it is approved and they get the funding in place, they'll need to come back and receive, formal approval, not just from this body, but from the Board of Selectmen. So the soft letter basically says, we have a housing trust fund money. This is a great project. We're in full support. We're willing to commit monies from our housing trust fund money. We have this much in our trust fund at the moment. But of course, all this is subject to final approval by the Affordable Housing Committee and Board of Selectmen. So we did something very much like this. I committed, had a soft commitment letter of $500,000 for Bureau Street. And in that case, we didn't have site control or an application. Here we do have site control and application pending. So there is a possibility that, we'll have to, eventually make good on that commitment, but certainly it will make the application for low-income housing tax credits that much stronger. And also potentially leverage some state financial support outside of the low-income housing tax credit application itself. The fact that we've got local dollars committed, hopefully Carol can use that to convince SALA and the Department of Housing to provide some funding as well.
So you're
How
saying,
long could the application process take?
I'll turn things back to Carol because she can probably talk to the schedule a little better than I can.
Yeah, so applications all go into the Connecticut Housing Finance Authority on January 15th. And most likely the soonest they would make a decision would be at their board meeting at the end of March. If not, it could, possibly go into April. So if we were looking for, knowing if the application is going to receive credits or not, I'm saying late March would be the time that we would find out if we've been awarded credits or not.
And the other thing, Carol had shared with me her calculation as to potential points towards a future moratorium, and certainly the fact that this would be 100% affordable with some deeply targeted units at 30% AMI would bump this up in terms of the total housing unit equivalency points from 65.75 initially to 81 points. So
You said 100% affordable?
100% affordable.
Yeah, I thought there was a mix.
Originally, there was a mix, but now we're going for a low LIHTC application, and so there's to make it competitive, we have to maximize the number of affordable units.
What is that rough mix of units, Mark, by AMI?
Carol provided this sheet, and we have eight units at or below 80%, 6 at or below 60%, 10 at or below 30%, and 16 at or below 50%.
40 total?
40 total. So this is, this is realistically, the housing authority or groups like the housing authority, nonprofit housing developers that are seeking, that are getting government financing for these projects, either directly or indirectly through the LIHTC process, are the only way you can really provide this level of affordability at the 50 or 30%. It just doesn't work otherwise.
Are the neighbors quiet?
For the most part, I haven't had any contact. We've been over there to do some preliminary environmental stuff that we have to do for the application. But my office hasn't received any calls. And, we're prepared obviously to fulfill our commitments, although we've had some abutting property owners, real estate owners have changed. We're still committed to do the things that we committed to do on the landscaping plan, et cetera. So, we can protect their privacy and we also can protect our own privacy once the development is built.
So if you're okay with it, I'll provide Carol with a letter similar to what we did with Bureau Street.
We need a motion, don't we?
No, it's not an action item because I don't, in the past you haven't, I've
Wouldn't you like
written a
that?
soft commitment letter because as you know, the soft commitment letter doesn't really say a whole lot other than says, please bear in mind that allocation decision is subject to the approval of the Affordable Housing Committee and Board of Selectmen. So you're not,
You don't want to say that the committee.
you really can't. It's a special,
endorses
it's a
it.
special meeting tonight. So all I need is a sense of the body,
Okay.
which is fine. And I will
I
continue.
think you
to
should do
write
that
these
then.
letters.
I think that'd be a good thing.
Yes.
And thank you, Carol.
Yes.
Well, thank you all for having me and really appreciate this support through the 6 years. You folks have been fabulous. You've taken time out of your busy day to come and advocate at, inland wetlands meetings and everything. So I just want to say, thank you and happy holidays to everyone.
Thank you, Carol. Carol, you too.
Take care.
So Mark, that's 500?
Yeah, so if you want to see what, this is what we sent on Bureau. So it's a very, even before we had housing trust fund money, I would provide these soft letters of commitment. Sometimes helps to, get financing from other bodies, so.
So the agencies like it because the town is supporting it? Is that the plan?
It shows town local support.
Yeah, I mean, we know this is a very controversial development, but I mean, it's a fait accompli at this
Oh,
point.
absolutely.
So, why not leverage the dollars that we have?
They have all their entitlements in place, the approvals are in place, so
Yeah.
actually it's, bang for your happens. Bang for your buck.
Absolutely. Look at that.
We skipped over the meeting schedule, I presume, so that we could get Carol.
Yes, definitely. So next item is the meeting schedule that Mark gave us. I think it's, in every case, this is the second.
Should be the second Wednesday of each month at 7:00. I did have staff double check to make sure we weren't hitting any major religious observances or holidays, and I think we're clear. Of course, during the course of the year, we may not choose to meet until August or July, depending on whether whether we can get a quorum, and there are occasions like tonight where we have to have a special meeting. So, but I do need to file a schedule with the town clerk, so.
You did check the holidays.
I did, but I always make a draft, so in case we got more eyes here, that's good.
Okay with everybody?
Good with you?
Okay, well, thank you. We'll proceed.
That's an approval.
That's an approval. That's an approval.
You can make a motion to approve that one.
Sure.
I'll make a motion.
Okay. Second,
Second.
all in favor? Great. Okay, next item we have, well, I guess we actually can shift to the old business issues.
Yeah, I'll give you a couple updates, I suppose. So first, as we're talking about the Housing Trust Fund, I think we probably should give you an update as to where things stand at the moment. Too many papers for stuff. There it is. And it's- So as of end of November, we have a balance of $1,017,000, $17,902. 1017902. We have, from that, we've reserved $15,000 for additional expenses related to the Parkview Commons development. So we have an uncommitted balance of
So,
$2,902. I'm better at writing. So roughly $1 million. And, you know, I know $1 million sounds like a lot, but, you know, when we're talking about purchasing property, for example, you know, it doesn't get you very much in these days, unfortunately. So that's why, you know, something like what Carol just presented might be a pathway for this committee with respect to housing trust fund dollars in the future, where we're using the trust fund to leverage other sources of support to fill a gap, to finance these types of projects.
And what about Parkview Commons? Are we gonna put more money in there?
We will, but I don't think there are any additional lots that we're anticipating coming available for repurchase.
But on the construction side,
No, I think we'll be okay with, we're anticipating that Habitat will take care of the construction development costs. There have been in the past, with respect to Greenfield Street, for example, we allocated some community development block grant dollars towards demolition and clearance of the existing structures. So that might be a potential assist from the town, but I don't think that they're asking this board to commit housing trust fund dollars for actual hard costs or new construction. So so we have $1 million in the housing trust fund. I know some of you had asked for an update as to some of the outstanding projects. I did bring with me the most important.
you showed up with that.
Yeah, most important milestone today was the town did submit its initial application to the state for a housing moratorium. So assuming that the state finds the application to be complete, which we believe it is, the clock starts ticking. They have 90 days with which to review that application and render a decision. 90 days puts us in, March of next year. Until that time, we remain subject to any applications filed pursuant to 8-30G. So anything that's in the hopper or filed prior to the date in which the state makes a decision and approves the application, we'll still need to deal with. But this is an important milestone. It's been a lot of work. The application is a 2-volume set, 650 pages, correct?
We went in today.
It went in today. It was preceded by a required 20-day public comment period noticing our intent. It is no accident that we're receiving some applications presently under 830G. There's a rush to file. So we've seen a number of them. Some that are presently before the commission and others that we anticipate being filed within the next 90 days.
So if they were to, what do they have to file? What do they have to do in order to preserve their place in line?
Just file it.
But do they have to do a big book filing or is it a 1-page filing?
No, it has to be an application. It has to be an application. Yeah. Doesn't have to be a good application, but it has to be an application. So this, I did put together a list, which is the outstanding projects. You can pass it around. I'll make sure I post this, Janice, send it around.
Thank you.
Again, this is just our rough tracking sheet. Not all these projects will come to fruition. You'll see a number of projects that are delayed. Some may never get built.
Where's the second page?
It's 1 page.
There used to be 2.
No, I shortened it because these are just ones that have not been built or and are being proposed.
It's on
Yeah.
a total.
So, yeah, the list, if you want to look at the list that's in the application, it's online.
Yeah. Okay.
So we can think of anything on this list as contributing to moratorium number 2.
Right. In fact, I did a quick, we do keep track of these, so those that are
more likely to be built. We started assembling a list, which includes, Carol's project, assuming she gets the financing she's looking for from the state. I don't know if she'll get the 9%, but I'm sure that she'll get 4% credits for that deal. We have a couple projects under construction on 92 Bronson Road and 131 Beach Road. We also have the inclusionary project at 219 Ash Creek Boulevard, the crossings at Fairfield Metro, the first building there. So if you put those into the hopper, those that are either under construction, those that are approved and likely to be built within the next 4 years, we're currently sitting almost with enough points to qualify for moratorium number 2, which is our goal. Our goal would be to extend the moratorium for a total of 9 years if we can.
Number one is 4 years, the next one is 5.
5, yes.
Will it go up to 6 or is it?
No, stays at 5. The second subsequent moratorium is a lower threshold to clear. You only need 1.5% of the most recent decennial total number of housing units as of the last decennial census. So, that point total was, we would need 329.7 points as opposed to 433 for this go round. And we were very close to the 329 points that we would need, just based on projects that we have on the front burner. So again, the idea is to get those, and it does take time, not only, that's why we're only including projects that are either under construction, have been approved, or in the process of lining up financing, getting the construction drawings in place. Because, it's gonna take, usually for these projects, it's at least an 18-month build. Usually it's 6 months to secure financing and get your construction drawings in place, sometimes longer. So you have to figure at least a 2 to 3 year time horizon. And so something that's already has its entitlements, has its approvals in place, or is either under construction, is likely to be sealed by the time our moratorium number 1 runs out.
So Mark, the 300 and some points that we would need for number 2, how does that relate to the 846 units?
Yeah,
Or points?
The points. What I did was I pulled out the ones that I think are likely to move forward.
Okay.
Yeah.
Pretty short,
And we keep track of those separate. Yeah.
Okay.
We do keep track of the master list of all projects that have ever been proposed or conceived or thought about. There are a couple on here that are, still a little bit maybe eye in the sky type thing, but there has been, for example, a process by which some of these applications went to WPCA and made an application and received initial capacity commitment, a sewer capacity commitment. So we put it on the list.
What does PH mean? TPVPH?
Public hearing.
Public hearing.
Yeah, so there are a couple that are in the hopper, closer. So amongst those that we're looking at now, which aren't on my short list, but 467 Tungus Hill, which is a set aside development, 46 units. That public hearing is continued until the 14th of January. 2179 Post Road, which is Mark Andre's project, mixed use development. He's proposing 20% affordable, which is an increase over our affordability inclusionary zoning requirements. That hearing has been continued, likely will be taken up on the 28th of next month. There is those are 2 that I'm aware of. Last night, there was a hearing on Stilson, 452 Stilson Road.
I don't think it was.
And it was not completed, so that'll be continued. And I believe they actually withdrew the application. They left the text amendment.
They left the text amendments. Yeah.
And as you'll recall,
what the text amendment is proposing to do was resurrect the old regulatory scheme that allowed for many of the condominium developments to be built in town. So it provides for a modest, slightly higher level of density than what's currently allowed on our regs, but enough to make them economically viable. And so that proposal was to return to that prior zoning regulation that allowed for those developments to occur. It's a DRD, overlay, floating overlay zone. So that's the short list. We've also we've been monitoring Bureau Street, and we do anticipate there'll be a private application. We do know it's under contract. I would anticipate a set-aside application under 830G for that.
Do you know who has it?
I do not. I asked and they did not disclose. I heard from an attorney. And I think the planning and zoning has heard from somebody doing traffic analysis for the plan.
Do you know the sales price?
Yes, I do. Very high.
What's that?
It was not anywhere close to Carol's price range. For what we had at price. So, yeah, there's a few that are bumping around. So,
Can you tell us, are you at liberty to mention any of the others that are bumping around?
yeah, the other one that has not filed yet, we did do a code review for 812, 820 Reef Road and 155 Forest Avenue. It's an aggregation of several lots. It's proposed as a 45 unit development. So that's on the list. As you know, the projects on Berkeley and Uncle Road are in court litigation. So we'll receive a decision on those any day. 110 Woodrow was approved, set aside, as was 222 Stilson Road. That was recently approved on the 12th of November. My understanding is that there's an appeal, there was an appeal taken on the inland wetlands approval. So the ones that we, again, we've heard rumblings with regard to Upper Black Rock Turnpike. We'll see a couple projects there. Those, I wouldn't put a whole lot of credence in those numbers. Those were used for purposes of securing sewer capacity for the projects, and they tend to be high. And again, some of these projects will probably never, ever get built. But again, for our purposes, we want to make sure we're tracking them.
Like George.
Yeah, I did take off projects that have been superseded, like 4185 Black Rock Turnpike was approved for a 94 unit set aside development. And then it was, went back to the medical office use, Hartford Healthcare and
Still not.
Sloan Kettering. So we took that off the list. So. The only other things that as Attorney Fallon mentioned, planning and zoning is going to be very busy for the next 3 months. You do have a session scheduled on the 21st of January to discuss the draft plan of conservation development. They've been making slow progress on that, but hopefully.
I think they pretty much, at least for the next iteration, they're done with the housing. So now they're moving on to environmental, the environment, that section. So maybe things will go a little bit more pace.
So they were talking about January 7th or 21. So are they meeting at all?
They're not meeting on the 7th now. So they're taking that off, but they're meeting the 14th, 21st, and 28th. And I gather they'll be meeting every Tuesday in February as well.
Okay.
Busy, very busy.
Now, Mark, we had talked about, I mean, I know we've been trying to get the meeting with them. Which hasn't gone anywhere despite our efforts to get the the joint meeting with,
I think they seem to be a little busy right now.
but, you had suggested an alternative approach that might be interesting.
Well, I didn't run this past Jim. I'm sure he doesn't want to add to their scheduling issues, but, you know, I noted in my conversation with you, Irv, that the proposed text amendment for the offsite designates an offsite below market rate units in lieu of, to satisfy the inclusionary zoning requirement, was presented as a concept as part of a informal pre-application review. So, you know, there is, I suppose, an opportunity to make a pre-application and ask for 15 minutes to present something informally. You know, if my hope is that at some point we'll have an adopted plan of conservation and development in the near future. And then based on that, I think we can, at least on some of the topics we've talked about, like the inclusionary zoning provisions or parking, that might give us some comfort that we can make an application, but that is an option, I suppose.
And it might be a way of getting some attention to these issues, some public attention to these issues as well.
And until there's an application, you're certainly free to have a conversation with individual planning and zoning commission members and just understand, you know, if there are any issues or concerns. So that's certainly permitted until there is an application pending. There is the text amendment that we heard from Attorney Russo has been presented to planning and zoning, been referred to a public hearing, a date not yet certain. My guess is that would be heard sometime in February. So we do have some time to consider any comments we would like to make on that proposed regulation amendment. I think there was some support for providing the flexibility or some additional tools to planning and zoning at their discretion. But I don't, you know, I think we want to take a deeper dive in terms of what, if there are other comments we want to make with regard to what's being proposed. I'm talking about the offsite DMR units that Chris Russo presented. We should circle back on 441 at some point too.
Yeah, we're meeting again on January 8th, so, you know,
We are, yeah.
we are, so in 3 weeks, so we could certainly address, you know, both those issues then.
Okay. Anything on the housing trust fund or the other developments, questions on applications, other developments?
When we talked about publicizing the effort to build the housing trust fund. We talked about the concept of the land bank and land trust. So, you know, maybe talking about a plan to move ahead on those fronts would make sense for, you know, January or near term meeting. Well, when do you expect the really
I would anticipate that sometime probably late second quarter of spring.
So that's certainly an event that you could leverage for that.
Yeah, I think we want to make sure we have an updated pamphlet, opportunities for people to contribute, ready to go when that.
The moratorium application has already been in the paper, right?
It hasn't been in the paper, you know, I think until we actually filed the application, not that it was a well-kept secret, but certainly the development community was well aware of where we are in the process. But at this, you know, it's a little hard to be too celebratory because it's not yet approved. I mean, my remark to the first selectman is it's a little early to be celebrating the occasion. It's an important milestone nonetheless. We got to this point and filed the application, and now it's in the state's hands. So I will feel more like celebrating when the state approves it.
I was thinking just notification, not celebration.
I do think there probably will be something coming out in the newsletter.
Do you have to start over from scratch, or is there like a reapplication period that is fast track? If they didn't like page 4, they substitute.
No, I think they'll do their review. I suspect, assuming again, they find it to be complete. If they take exception to how we calculate the points for a specific project, I think they'll make those revisions. We have plenty in reserve. I suppose if it's material and we have a different point of view, we may want to appeal that, but right now we have 22 plus points to the good.
If they decide it's incomplete, they kick you out, you
Yes.
go back to the end.
Yes, we have to start, not to the end, but we have to resubmit. Let's focus.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you so much. It's been most interesting.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We'd love to have you come anytime
Okay,
and get involved with us.
I tried to be quiet.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I don't expect it to be found to be incomplete. Yeah, let's focus on the positive. What's that? Let's focus on the positive. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I just remember the 202 application we did, and we did again.
Well, that wasn't a fact that was not complete. They just made other funding decisions, so. Funding's a whole different.
So I think we ought to say something that's congratulating Mr. Barnhart. on
I think absolutely.
the accomplishment
It
of
was a team effort, so we appreciate that. And Tom, having Tom has been a godsend. To help,
Yeah.
with the final, chasing down some loose ends here and there and completing the application.
Marking it all works.
Yeah.
Great job, terrific job.
Champagne soon. Down on the other projects, Parkview, we are in the process of successfully relocating one of our tenants from 376 Quincy to the development on Park Avenue. We still need to enter into, we've been talking with the Habitat to enter into a ground lease, but we have to present that ground lease document both to the Board of Selectmen and ultimately to the RTM for their approval. Hopefully we'll get that done in January. 244 Greenfield Street, we've already talked about, but 254 Greenfield Street, we have all of our approvals in place. We did enter into provide the deposit, so we're under contract. And we expect to close. The tenant is relocating as of the end of this month. Has found another place to live, and so we expect to close early in the new year. And so again, the idea would be to amend our development agreement with Habitat to allow them to develop that as additional home ownership units.
So we would add that to your list.
We would add that to the list.
But it's not on the list now.
Not on the list yet.
254.
So that'll be 3 units and 3, maybe 4. We'd like to get 2 duplexes if we can. It's conforming with 3, but we'd like to see if we can get 2 duplexes there. We talked about Bureau Street. Nothing really, I don't know if you have anything to report on the Fairfield County Center for Housing Opportunity grant. We have a meeting tomorrow.
We are meeting tomorrow, so we had a meeting, what they call a cohort meeting, which was the 4 other towns. And Mark was on a panel, it was a very interesting panel that we ought to do some more of a debrief on, maybe in January, on housing trust funds and how they're used. So there was a representative from the Affordable Housing Trust Board from Greenwich, and there was also Emily Gordon, who we had several of us had spoke with previously, who was the, I guess, she's the person in charge of managing affordable housing in Stamford. So the 3 of them gave very interesting presentation. And I think we learned a few things, maybe a few new potential ideas from that. We also had some conversation on communication, and then the small group meeting that we had prior to that was maybe more communication than we had hoped, and less emphasis on middle housing, which had been the whole point as far as our interest. We had laid that out as the main topic we have. So we have another meeting tomorrow, and Mark and I are expecting big delivery of information on middle housing tomorrow that we can all put to use. And if there isn't, we're going to wonder why. Well,
I'm gonna let you play bad cop next time.
Your part was good enough last time.
It's the Fairfield County Center for Housing Opportunities. So it's Melissa Kaplan Macy. And Lynn Haig has been the principal, I guess, staff person assigned to this. So Lynn said that she's working on it, but last meeting we had another person,
Mark McNulty,
who's a communication expert. And, our issue is not really messaging, I don't think. Unfortunately,
You guys know,
I'm
on board there.
unless there's the folks in this room.
I didn't know that Brian was in this board.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
The folks in this room are passionate about the issue of affordable housing. Most people, unless it affects them in some personal way, are not, right? So, and the two ways it affects them is if they're looking for housing and they need housing, or there's a development plan in their neighborhood. And in the latter case, once something has been proposed and people are already, sharpening up their knives and pitchforks, no amount of messaging is really gonna win the day, in my opinion. So there is a communication messaging component that's important, and we're trying to do that. But I think what Jackie's doing with some of her groups in terms of getting folks to come to public hearings and present in favor or in support of something is more important. So building that community in some way would be a better use if we're going to try to, again, influence. Who are we talking to? The Planning and Zoning Commission. Planning and Zoning Commission really gets it, I think, here.
Yeah, it's educating the general public, which you saw.
Educating the general public, and you're talking
street like
and you're competing with a lot of people who are just not focused on it.
You don't really understand what AMI is and understand what.
No, I did mention at the small group meeting that we had, the fact that we had this housing group within the age-friendly Fairfield project, developing, just sort of putting together a plan together at this stage. And they actually picked up on that, and Emmeline picked up on that. She wanted to learn more, and I promised her we would give her more information. But I think they see that as potentially, and I think we all do, as maybe potentially producing more YIMBYs, if you will, and people who are enthused, and people that we can bring out when we're trying to bring public weight to an issue. It's a long-term effort. Now, subsequent to that, I got a call from Mark McNulty of the collective, and he wanted to spend some time with me brainstorming about how we would go about connecting and identifying people who could become advocates. So I spent some time with him, and we threw a few ideas around it. But I told him that before going further, I really wanted to sit and talk with a lot of the committee members individually and get their perspectives on this, because I want to be speaking for the committee, and I think, but I think we were talking in that conversation more toward the idea of developing advocates as opposed to going with these general messages to the public.
Right.
And as you pointed out, once there's opposition to a project, and that opposition presents itself, it's pointless for us to have a conversation about that That's
That
difficult.
particular
It's
project.
difficult, yeah. So we need to work proactively. Well, I'll be in touch with you all individually to let you know what thoughts I've received and get your thoughts as to how we might proceed.
So we do have some time on the text amendment allowing off-site housing developments. Maybe we could put the, as you suggested on our January meeting, to consider whatever comments we want to make on that, as well as any comments with respect to the presentation we heard tonight at 441. And then lastly, we do have item 8 is our annual report. I drafted something based on the methodology, I guess, template that we've used in the last few years. There are a couple holes. I mean, so I apologize for late notice, but the first page is essentially a recitation of our mission and an overview of the major goals or the thrust of the most recent affordable housing plan that was adopted in 2022. And then just highlights of a couple of things that we did this past year. And there are a lot of things, and you go back on reading the minutes, there are a lot of things that we could put in here. I try to grab 4 that captured the essence of the major things that were out there. Steve, I'll need your help, I think, with your, yes, you sent out through November, but then you have the December report.
Yeah, this goes through today.
Yeah, okay. But usually at the end of December, you'll send me that, and I'll update the median sale price, the number of residential sales, and those under 300,000, which probably aren't.
None, that I could find.
None.
Yeah.
Well, hope springs eternal, you never know.
One thing that, I sent you guys this, housing indicators list, and
Very good.
there was a page that I hadn't seen before, which is housing affordability index. And, it is, read the fine print here. Well, it's what we do, it's the relationship between median household income and the amount of funds necessary to qualify for a median priced home. Under prevailing interest rate, it says, not quite sure what that means, but we are at 45%, which is not good. 100% means that you're at equilibrium, and it's better to be above 100. So we're now at 45. Last year we were at 46. Year before that we're at 56. I don't know how we rate according to other towns within Fairfield County, or how we rated 10 years ago. I could look it up. It would take a little bit of time, but if you look through this, if there's anything that you wanted me to flesh out, I'd be happy to do it.
Okay. That's great, Steve.
Yeah.
So the last part is that statistical update. And we have a status of the moratorium. Kind of surplus, not a gap, so that's good. And a little narrative that indicates that we did file our application. There's several other projects under construction or in progress that will contribute towards our next moratorium. And then we're required to provide an update on the Housing Trust Fund. This is as of November, so I have to update this as of the end of December. But anything I missed or?
Well, I found this box a little
Confusing.
hard to follow.
Okay.
Maybe it's just me, but I just found it hard to follow. So,
Which box? The moratorium?
yeah. You know, the top line is easy enough, but
Yeah, it's really just a breakdown without going into a lot of pages in terms of the units and the points being generated in each of the categories here, but yeah, I was just trying to be consistent with what we've done, what we presented to the RTM in the past. I think last year we did have more of an oral presentation. We did dispense with the PowerPoint deck, but we could supplement this with some slides that would maybe be more
Well, maybe just
interesting.
another sentence to describe in progress, like what do you mean by in progress? Because, you know, we talked about maybe there's 300 some odd, and there's only 114 on here, so I think that would help clarify. That's
Okay.
why, but, you know,
I did have
these are
that.
pretty likely,
I
or
did have that and I took it out, so I think I have room to put it back.
you
in.
probably have room. I mean, it's just a one line.
But we don't have to, I don't know that we have to act on this tonight. You know, we do have a meeting early in January, we can probably take it up with that. Then I'll have the final numbers and information from Steve, and I'll put that in, send it out there. Anything else?
Well, Bob,
Bob's got some.
Bob, I'm not sure whether you wanted to talk about it, it's only 8:22.
I can, I would, it'd probably be a good idea to dial in the Zoom to do that. And share my screen. I mean,
So this is on town-owned properties that might be potentially convertible to affordable housing.
we're missing middle.
Or missing middle.
We're missing, that was the whole, because that's how we addressed it in the.
Bob, you haven't looked at potential conversions of offices into residential.
No,
And we don't have a big supply, we've got that one. that's already been converted.
Hang on a second.
hold on. Okay. Sorry, go ahead.
It's a new sound.
Now.
Next time is to throw the computer in the hallway.
This one maybe that's good.
Yeah, your microphone.
Step away. Yeah, it's a microphone.
Martians in the machine.
Microphone on your.
I'm not sharing area.
You just put it on mute.
It's muted. It says, maybe there's a setting that can turn off your microphone.
Is there, is there another way? Can you, hook up the USB to, the protection system?
You have one.
Yeah.
Do you have one?
And comes prepared.
Oh, into that.
Yeah, or into.
Here, let me do this. You go into my office, I'll put this in.
I'm gonna leave.
Please do. Please do.
I've never heard it make that kind of noise.
Chaz, are you still with us?
Oh my God. Is it not still our phone?
Chaz, are you still with us?
We're driving her crazy.
Bob, this is a non sequitur, but are you still treasurer for the church?
I am, yes.
All right.
Yeah.
He's a man of many
All right.
talents and many.
I wish I had known that sooner. I was
He's trying to
treasurer for 6 years of the Unitarian congregation.
Oh, yeah.
In for us.
And I think that
Take mine
the
from.
joys and sorrows of a treasurer of congregation must be the same, must overlap, and.
Yeah.
And you might have some good ideas that maybe we could implement.
No, sure, yeah, be glad to chat with you, yeah.
Herb, I'm still here.
Great, Janice.
Yes, good. And no feedback issues.
We're trying to set up,
Oh, yes, you almost lost me, but, but I'm here.
great, so we're trying to set up a presentation that Don's put together when.
Yes, I saw the screen share.
It's for 7 years. Yeah,
Oh,
Yeah, that's for
I
7
have to
years.
pick your brain too.
Yes, are you sure for yours?
I was like, I have to leave to go. I was like, I hope
Yeah.
26 and
Oh,
18.
okay.
I
However,
think all congregations
You
are
hear me?
it's like, does this look good? I go, yeah.
not as successful as they used to
I don't know.
be.
To try one.
Benches are not a big portion of we actually sold one of our parsonages. We had 2, so that we could do some asset improvement stuff. So, yeah.
Felt bad to leave them. It was
We
great.
had that was good. We had some resources. So when we stopped trying to have 2 pastors, which is a big savings too.
Yeah.
Personnel is a big issue.
So one of the Unitarian congregations was given this is on Long Island, Shelter Rock it's called. When somebody died, she had given them some shares of like oil wells.
And it's very
that
fresh and very nice.
Nobody, it wasn't worth anything in 1920, but today,
Wow.
$1 and so they've got so much money, they're giving it away to other congregations.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's nice.
Yeah.
That's a nice problem to have.
Yeah.
We mixed
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, we can, so
labor intensive. And
you're gonna,
And do you see the slide?
technically, this is easy.
How's he doing that? How is he talking to us?
he's dialed in to the
I'm
Zoom.
in my office.
So Mark, the plan would be for you to stay there and advance this?
Yes, and you tell me when to advance the slide, I will do that.
All right, thank you.
We could all leave and you never know.
Okay, so
I will see you.
let's go to the next slide because that's our overview.
Let me see, it should.
Failing.
Down, or enter, we'll go to the next.
Is that good?
Enter, no, page down or enter?
How come it's not, hang on,
You're in the screen show,
yeah,
slideshow.
hang on a second.
Right.
Wait 1 second, I'm gonna go back into,
Oh, there you go.
We're going to slideshow.
We're at the bottom.
you getting any of this?
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah, but you want to go into slideshow.
Oh, it's fine.
It's okay. We can look at the stuff on the left.
Well, I thought I did go in the slideshow, but it's not,
Oh, at the very top,
there it
upper
is.
resume slideshow, there you
You
go.
also do it at the bottom there on the tab.
All right,
Go to the next slide then.
why isn't it doing this though?
Don't worry about it, just page down.
Page
That's
down.
what I was doing.
So excited to get to the funnel thing.
Yeah, that's, it is one of the high points. Okay, so you're able to, okay, you can do that from there, okay. No,
Call their ground.
go back up.
I figured this
You're up, no,
There it is.
no,
That one?
the table of contents.
All right,
Yeah, okay. So, this has been a work in progress, picking up from where some of us left off a couple of years ago, and we've had a lot of discussions. And the intent was to really get into the data and look at very granularly all of the town-owned properties using the GIS system. And as I've discovered, that's not 100%. There are properties in the GIS system that don't have field cards, that don't show acreage or square footage. So I had a couple of discussions with the planning and zoning staff as part of preparing this. They put their intern on it late last summer. And so between she and I, we kind of identified and got our arms around all of those anomalies. And so what I want to lay out for you are some of the key considerations in putting this together. take you through a process of elimination. As I looked at all these properties, how do we get our arms around them? How do we size them to something that's more manageable so that we can then be very specific and say this parcel may have potential for an additional affordable housing project. And the net of all that, to me, in sort of a David Letterman format, would be my 10 properties that I've identified for discussion. And then behind this, I'll spare you the details, but when I send to you this report, I'll send it to you as a PDF. Attached to it will be a listing in the appendix of all of the properties, and you can kind of browse it and see if did we miss something, is there something else worth looking at? If so, please let me know. So Mark, the next slide. There are a lot of factors that go into this analysis, and I think I've captured them all. You know, we want to be sure that we know whether or not the property is in a flood zone, whether there are wetlands either nearby or on the property. And in some cases, there are some parcels that may be attractive, but in parts of that parcel, there is some wetland to deal with. Lot size and configuration. We have some really weirdly configured town-owned lots. Some are trapezoids, some are triangles, some are very thin little slivers. Some have 0.01 square foot acreage. They're really tiny. Others are bigger. Road access issues. Believe it or not, we have some town-owned properties that are landlocked. There's no road to them. They're surrounded by other properties, and you have to walk on their property to get to the town-owned property.
Which is, I thought under law, you cannot have any landlocked property anymore.
Maybe not, but we do.
Yeah.
In other words.
And one or two of them are
Should be something on the.
made the top 10 list because they may have potential, but there's no street access to them.
Currently,
But it doesn't mean you can't. I mean, but it's you run through all these vagaries in the data. So you have those road access issues, grading issues. You're going to see examples of some properties that right now they're not zoned. They're not in this district that allows for multifamily housing. And so that would require some additional exemptions, text amendments, and so forth. I wanted to pay attention to what's around that property. I looked at each one of these in GIS and pulled the field card at each one of these and looked at in Google Maps, many of them that seem to be attractive. And what's of interest is not just the property, but what's next to it, what abuts it, what's adjacent to it. And some of them have potential because of what's adjacent to them. There are a couple of properties that do have, they're not entirely vacant. There are structures, quote unquote, on them that may be of interest to us. Although initially I looked at trying to identify which ones are truly vacant, don't have any property on them, any structures. And then, of course, we have to be mindful of open space, town designated open spaces. A lot of the records in GIS are incomplete. They don't show that it's in a flood zone when it really is. They don't show that it's in open space when it really is. So the planning and zoning staff were really helpful because they were able to fill in a lot of those gaps for me. Okay, Mark, we can go to the next slide. And here,
Just a quick.
yes, go ahead, Steve.
When it's labeled open space, does that mean the town is officially labeled?
Officially designated as as open space, yes.
It'd be really tough to claw that back.
There are about 1,250 acres of official open space in the town,
Thank you.
according to the Open Space Committee, Land Acquisition Committee.
I'm so serious, Bob. I mean, theoretically, the fact that something's in a flood zone or that it has a structure doesn't completely eliminate it.
It doesn't, but I made two passes. I'm gonna take you through the first pass and then humor me for the second pass, because that's a little bit more interesting. This is a little drier, but we've got 324 town-owned parcels. The zoning staff and I both agree that's the number. That's how many we have. Right off the top, I said, look, let me just set aside any of those in our flood zone. So the 117 of those. And it's a process of elimination. We're narrowing the funnel. Of the remainder, 72 has something on it. It's a marina, it's a pumping station, it's a cemetery, it's a park. There's something on it. So I eliminated those. The next cut I took, I said, let's set aside those 62 parcels out of the 324 that are in open space. And then the net of that is that ostensibly we have 73 out of the 324 that are vacant, quote unquote. Okay, so the next slide, Mark. And here's a summary. They cut across zoning districts from A to AAA. They hit most of our zoning districts. Not a lot of study here. There'll be no exam at the end, but you can see how it lays out. And it's interesting that how so many of the town-owned properties are in districts A, AA, and AAA, which I was a little surprised at in terms of 130 of those properties, 30% of them are in those districts. Next slide, Mark. This is the same data, but in terms of acreage. So town-owned properties accounts for about 2,000 acres in town. That's 10% of the total land mass of the town. We have about a little over 20,000 acres in town, 31 square miles. And again, FPD, that district has, and the R2, R3, R4s have significant acreage, as well as the single A zone. A lot of acreage. They don't correspond to the number of properties necessarily. If you go to the next slide, Mark, you can just see this is, and you'll be able to look at this when you get your copy, but you can just see how dissimilar they are in terms of the number of parcels on the left-hand side and the corresponding acreage. They don't correlate 100%. You got some districts with a lot of acreage and fewer structures, fewer properties, vacant properties. This slide. Okay, so I took a look at the 73 and I said, okay, right now we can't build multifamily in a AA and AAA. So there are 37 of those. I netted those out. The project on Greenfield, 245 Greenfield, is 0.2 acres, and we're putting 2 duplexes on it. So I said, well, that seems to be that's a tiny lot. I said, let me just eliminate any parcels that are fewer than that size, because it's going to be hard to get a configuration. They're not all rectangular or square. They're oddly shaped. I said, let me just put those 17 aside. And then I said, okay, of the remainder, 12 of them have wetlands right now. So for the time being, let's set aside those. We started with 324 properties. We're down to 7 that are vacant, not open space, don't have a structure on them, aren't in those 3 districts. And so that's the net of this entire exercise. And it's a pretty meager list. If you go to the next slide, Mark, here's where they are. A couple on Hillendale, 1 on Melville, 1 on Middle Plain, 1 on the Post, 2 on the Post Road, and 1 on Sanford Street. And we're not going to spend a lot of time on this, but they are basically in districts that allow for multifamily. And again, not in a flood zone, don't have wetlands. And you can see that none really leap out. Some of them are tiny. They have a weird size. And they're not all viable. I think out of this list, maybe 2 or 3 are viable. So Steve and I and Herb and Mark and Emmeline met a couple of months ago, and we said, here's where we are. We had a discussion about these and some other properties. And then the net result of that was, I said, let me go back and take another look, take another cut and see, just because a property is on a wetland or maybe near a flood zone, maybe we shouldn't eliminate it or just rule it out outright. So I said, maybe there are some in zones A and AA or AAA that are worth looking at. Now we're going to get into the meat of it, and it's my Letterman's top 10 list. We'll start at number 10, and this one is not a town-owned property. Remember I said that I was interested in seeing what's adjacent, and I tripped over quite a few properties. The state owns 51 parcels in the town of Fairfield. State-owned, Department of Transportation largely, but not solely, not entirely. Many of them are up in Hoydens Hill in the northern part. Others are down in the coastal area. This one I thought was of interest because, and you probably pass it if you get on the Merritt. There's the entrance to the Merritt. It's on Jefferson Street. It's that commuter parking lot that is usually closed, very seldom, if ever, used anymore for commuter parking.
Over by Sacred Heart.
And it's down the road from Sacred Heart.
It's like the GE, yeah.
And so this, the town, the state owns it, it's almost 5 acres. I'm not saying the whole thing could be developable, but I think the piece over on the left, or maybe the parking lot, could be, and it's right next to, it's easy access to the Merrick Parkway. So coming in at number 10 is the one out of the 10 that the state owns, it's not a town owned. And it's not really vacant, there's an outbuilding on it, and there's some, there's a parking garage there, there's a commuter lot, but, and again, it's a part of the transportation. That owns that.
That shed, that outbuilding, yeah, that's for,
Yeah,
that's road materials. No, they put stuff in there.
They put stuff in there, yeah.
That's
Yeah.
salt and,
So, you know, if you could take 2 acres or an acre and a half out of this to the left, maybe you have something, I don't know.
parking lot.
I submit it for your consideration. Go to the next slide, Mark, number 9. This is gonna be on my list, every list I make. I'm not gonna spend a lot of time on it. It's my favorite, although it's number 9.
It's everybody's favorite.
It's never gonna happen. We're never gonna see affordable housing on this lot, but boy, this is the old DuPont site, COVID testing site, overflow parking. Town picked it up from DuPont a number of years ago, and you're all familiar with it. It's right across the tracks there. And we've got traffic issues, I know, and so forth, but it's just sitting there. It's an empty lot. Somebody's gonna, and it's worth a lot of money. I mean, somebody's gonna come to the town, and maybe others have already, and I wouldn't be surprised if others haven't tried to put something there. But right now, it's just sitting there. We're not gonna ever use it again.
Transit oriented, that's right there.
I mean, there's a bus stop right there.
Train station's right there.
And the train station's right there. So I really like this property. I'm not gonna live to see the day where we have housing on it, I don't think, but it's number 9. Number 8 is interesting, 355 Burrows Road. Here's what it looks like.
Cemetery?
Go to the next slide, Mark. It's an R3 district. It's got some parking on it, and it's in yellow there on the upper right hand part from the field card. It's a weird shape, but it is interesting that it's just sitting there. And I'm not sure what.
Wait, isn't that where the soccer fields are?
It's not a park. There's no fields on it.
I think this is already leased to the adjoining property and provides affordable housing within 1838 Black Rock Turnpike. This was one of the things that interested me because it was a very innovative approach to
Yeah.
some affordable units as part of a mixed-use development on the adjoining parcel.
Yeah, interesting. So, you know, it's there. It's a piece of.
Is this across the street from Parish Court? Is that what that is?
No, it's down the street.
No.
It's off of
Next
Black.
to 1838 Black Rock Turnpike.
Oh,
Yeah. Next slide, Mark. Thank you. Number 7, there's a parcel on Melville, 110 Melville.
Yeah.
Now, this is, no, there's a road there, barely, going to it. But it's behind Stratford Elementary.
Yep.
And it's just sitting there, you know.
There's no road, I don't believe. There's no road.
Sorry.
Well, there is, right here. Here and here. Oh, no, there isn't. This is landlocked. Yeah, that's an example of what, yeah.
And who owns this property? Who owns this?
The town.
The town.
No, this is vacant town-owned property.
But some of these properties that you're showing here in your 10 aren't town-owned, right?
Everyone except for the first one is town-owned.
Except for the first one?
Oh, yeah, yep. So that's that, number 7. We have a property on 210 Ward that the town owns. Next slide. 2 acres,
That's next to Parish Court.
Parish Court, and you can see the configuration there. It's in yellow. It's not open space, town's own it, town's owned.
Is that garden? Is that where the town gardens are?
And maybe in Drew Park. And you know, there is a little wetland there in the lower right-hand corner, the blue line, that's why, you know, there are some wetlands, but again, it's 2 acres, nice piece of property. Maybe you could do something with it. Next one, Mark. Number 5, there are a couple on Hellendale. This one, and again, we're in the same general neck of the woods, a couple of acres. And it's across from 101 Hellendale, 2 town-owned properties. If you go to the next slide, Mark. These two properties come in at number 5 and number 4, and they're, and again, they're in that Stratfield School area. And they just seem, they're not being utilized for anything. They're
Bob,
just-
I think you have them marked, I think these are both the same parcels, right? I think you have an arrow drawn to the wrong one.
Yes, it's pointing just on,
So,
yeah.
that property,
Yeah, this is 101. If you go back 2 slides, Mark, the one in yellow is 100.
I got you.
I'm just
Okay,
pointing to 101 to show that.
I see.
a fan, but however, just let you know that when we did the Stratfield School redevelopment or fix-up or whatever you want to call it, they looked into taking because the town owns it.
Mhm.
We were gonna, it's really a pain in the neck to get in the Stratfield School, so they're gonna take the buses are gonna be able to go in through that and come down and change the way the parking lot was
Okay.
and everything. And there's like, somebody lives on, there was a holy hell. That can be recorded, or there was holy hell about putting that in there, but,
Yeah.
hey, man. I
The
mean,
my task was simply to identify
I know, but
property.
it's town property, it's town property, put a house there then.
Exactly. Go to the next,
Just remember, it's all Bob's idea.
number 3. This one I like a lot, 5655. It's just north, it's on the other side of the Merritt. 5545 is that new apartment building that's now under lease. We just got the CO, and that's what we were waiting for to file the moratorium. This one's on the other side, and you can see a little bit of a weird shape because there's a house in the corner here that the town doesn't own, but the town owns all that and north of it in this property, that's also town owned, but it's open space.
Is this sewer, Bob?
No. And there is some wetlands in it, but again, it's almost 3 acres. And it's right across the street from the apartment building. So there's development in that area. And this property could be likewise developed, I'm sure.
Hey,
That's north of Sacred Heart.
North of Sacred Heart, yes, north, yep. 309, if you go to the next slide, 309 Barbary Road. I draw your attention to the house that's circled, which I owned for 10 years, 1980 to 1990. All right. And what a lovely residential neighborhood. Little did I know when I moved in that up the block was a former Roman Catholic parish and seminary, St. John Vianney's parish. For those of you back in the 60s and 70s, who remember there was a church there. Seminary then changed hands, Giant Steps leased it, the town owns it. There are a couple of buildings on the property. And you can only reach it by going on Barbary Road. That leads off of Mill Hill Terrace, I think, no, Mill Hill Road. And there are a couple of buildings. I think, is Giant Steps still in there, Mark, or are they done?
no, they're going. The town purchased the property from them and owns the entire property. The one half of the campus is used for the alternative high school.
Yeah,
But the other half, the other building is at this point uninhabitable. Probably needs to be torn down.
yeah, probably. Giant Steps made some enhancements, some remodeling, but nothing earth shaking. There is in the area sewer and public water and sewer, certainly. But that's a property, again, it's 11 acres. It's got houses on it. You go through a residential area. To my mind, if you talk something like a pocket neighborhood, something that's lower density, 1 story, residential and look, senior housing, middle market housing, that fits with that residential look and feel because of the access. I think that has a lot of potential, and it's 10-something acres, and
Agreed.
there's no wetlands on this piece of property that I could tell from the GIS. Last, coming in at number 1 is the property immediately adjacent to 309 Barbary. This property you can't get on, well, you can, Mill Hill Road is right up here. Mill Hill Road is here. And then it's a weird shaped piece of property. There are some.
Go down the hill for it a bit.
There's some grading issues. 35 acres. The Diocese of Bridgeport owned it way back when, never did anything with it. Town bought it, town owns it. And adjacent to it on the east and the north is septic, but towards the south is public water and some sewer, but it kind of ends at the top of Barbary Road. But again, I'm not saying you develop all of this, but it's sitting there, it's totally residential. And it makes the question, when you look at that plus 309 Barbary, if you came in through Mill Hill, and you develop the two as one, you could make the main access Mill Hill and not through Barbary, or in addition to Barbary. And again, it is true, it is AA, so it's not zoned for multifamily. And the Barbary Road is also AA. So these are examples, they're sort of outliers, they don't fit, they're.
A question on this one, Rob. Wasn't there a proposal to develop that like 10 years ago, 7 years ago?
Gosh, I don't know, you could be right, I don't have that memory. Mark, was there?
I think Giant Steps at the time tried to expand their campus and their offerings and met quite a bit of opposition. They were going to reoccupy that second building on site.
Property she wanted to develop over on Mill Road.
This is a Carol Morton piece of property, this is a Carol.
That was the Episcopal Diocese one, wasn't it?
That's a different one, yeah?
Yeah, that's a different property. Yes, the Episcopal Diocese property is different.
So that's it. We're done. The last slide just is the beginning of the appendix, which I haven't attached. I'll shoot this out to you, but thoughts, comments, observations?
This is really, really good. You did a great job on this, and I can imagine how much time it took you. One quick question, you eliminated 12 or 17 lots because they were too small?
Yeah, they were like 0 point.
But you also looked at the neighboring.
Yeah.
There's no way to connect them to.
Not really, but take a look at it, because when you see the list of properties, you'll see the acreage, you'll see the square footage, you'll see the zoning district, you'll see the appraised value. It'll be in alpha order by street name, okay? And it's easy enough. If you spot a few, knowing how well you know the town and so forth, you may see an area and say, oh, I know that street and I know what's around there. But that was a very, very conscious part of the process, is to see what's around. Are there other town-owned properties? Are there other properties that are potentially redevelopable?
Yeah, did you identify any non-town-owned properties that you thought were ripe for?
Only, no, there were no other state-owned properties. So I looked at the 51, but really no others. And again, my focus was town-owned. We could extend this analysis to commercial, somewhat similar to Wash Street parking, that kind of analysis with the major shopping centers. Getting that data would be a little bit more problematic because you have to deal with occupancy rates and, are there buildings standing empty? Is there a central list of those? You can't get that in GIS. So that is not as straightforward an inquiry as this. Certainly worth exploring. If we had an approach, I'd run with it, but not sure how to tackle that one. But I think that could be viable. But at least this is the analysis of the town-owned property. So we can put it on a shelf, say, this is it, if you want to refer to it, whatever, it's there.
Well, Bob, do you think it'd be fruitful to look at properties owned by religious organizations or not-for-profits like the Mason thing?
And then make them an offer?
Well, I don't like the.
Yeah, like the Episcopal property on Mill Hill.
Yeah.
Perfect example.
That might still be, they might have been sold, I don't know.
Well, isn't there a law now that enables religious properties to be converted to affordable housing without and
I don't think it's a law.
zoning?
Some towns have done it.
No, I thought there was a state law now that enabled conversion of church property
Not aware
To
of it.
residential
into affordable housing.
and still owned by the church?
I
don't think so. I would.
Let me do some,
Interesting.
research on that. We do some research on that.
That would be, I
Let
don't.
me do some research. So anyway, I think we ought to continue discussion about this. So if everybody will have
Yeah, I'll shoot it out tomorrow.
So maybe we could continue this and.
You'll get a PDF of it.
Should get our drone up, go over the property.
Yeah, adds to
And,
the confusion, all the anxiety, it's already up.
Generates some.
yeah, no, well, I mean, this is public, obviously. But, you know, a lot of this can come down to personal observation too. You drive around town, as you see properties and so forth, we can notice it. And then, you know, we can do the deep dive and see, is it owned by a nonprofit? Do they own other properties? Multiple, are they leasing, even though it's, are they leasing it if it's residential or, you know, do they have tenants, for example, or, I don't know.
So the one by the, old GE where the parking lot,
Yeah.
you said part of that was state, part of it was town, or is it all?
No, it's all state. That parcel I showed you is all state. It's not fully used, but half of it's being used, but
Yeah, state.
Is Bob's number 1 or Bob's number 10?
that's number 10.
That's
Yeah,
number
we
10.
started the list, so.
Mark, near there, just around the corner is that.
Bus turnaround, yeah.
Is there enough land there?
Not without going on to the GE property. We've talked to Sacred Heart about a possible
Yeah.
redevelopment of that area.
It's in the POCD, it refers to that.
Yes.
Stuff, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
There's
Potential redevelopment.
there's an opportunity
Yeah.
to do something that would help anchor that area of town, provide some further neighborhood amenity type that would serve both the campus as well as the surrounding neighborhoods. But that's the long term. It is in the.
Yeah.
All right.
All right.
Okay, good job, Bob, good job.
Great job.
Impressive.
Great job, Bob. We'll talk more about this in January.
Well, how about the guy advancing the slides?
You know, pay no attention to the man behind the
We
curtain.
want to give him kudos for all the work he's done, so.
There was no feedback.
Next time.
Yeah, no feedback. It's good to see the echo.
So I think we're going. I'm ready. Motion to adjourn.
Oh, yeah.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.